Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is kushalmehra. So 12 दिन पहले मैंने लास्ट monologue किया था on Khalistan. Actually, this is something again that has been brewing in my head for a while. Uh, Full disclosure, today's monologue is not going to be from a geopolitical country based perspective. This is more of a philosophy and ethics related perspective that I am going to share. But before that, as always, I would like to thank all the members who joined in the last 12 days. So Kalpesh Chavda, we had Indic Wing, Varinder Garg, then Carbon Entropy, Ashutosh Patnaik, Ancient Human. Have I missed anyone? Yeah. Karan Bhatnagar, Anurag Bhole, Dumbo Dhruvi, okay. Milan, Jashwant, and Prakhar Srivastav. Yep. These are the YouTube ones. Is there anyone on Fanmo? No, I don't think so. Fanmo, may I missed anyone or on Patreon? So, as always, thank you very much for becoming a member. Please support this podcast by joining the membership program, because that's the only way this podcast sustains itself is through its membership program. There are two tiers. One is the seekers tier, the first tier, where you get access to multiple paper discussions, book discussions, and currently we are discussing the Rig Veda. We are basically covering the pro and anti side of Aryan invasion, Aryan migration, and out of India, all three of them. I have handpicked books that I consider to be very important in this discussion, books from whom I have learned a lot personally, or kuch paper bhi hai. So those papers, whether it's on the Saraswati River, whether it's on the latest Sadanak papers also are covered, and there are some other papers in that pantheon. B.B. Lal's books, Srikant Talagiri's books, the David Anthony's book, and a couple of other linguistic books too are there. If you want to support the next tier, which is the Speak With Me tier, well, you get everything in the Seekers tier. Along with that, you get a chance to chat with me once a month. And April's AMA is going to happen most likely on Saturday 29th. So if you are going to become a member, you will get access to that. And all on top of all the other content and the AMA, you also get access to the entire Valmiki Ramayana. I've basically covered everything chapter by chapter, verse by verse. And currently, we are also discussing the Manusmriti. And once the Manusmriti is done, we'll hop on to other discussions. All right. So now let's go to the monologue. I'll try to speak very little, 15-20 minutes, and then I'll see if there are any super chat questions or fanmo questions. And if there are none, I'll end up shutting it down in 15-20 minutes or half an hour, or I'll just scan the chat window too randomly. If there is anything, I will see. All right. So what is the purpose of today's monologue? So today's monologue is titled "Foreign Policy is Transactional." Now there is a very specific reason as to why I chose these words. So I first of all do not claim myself to be a foreign policy expert. I am not. I don't look at this from a foreign policy perspective. Like I said, I look at it from a moral ethics perspective of what are the ethics and morals of foreign policy? What are the ethics and morals of geopolitics? Are there any ethics at all? Or it's a bit of everything? So that should be the fundamental way that you have to understand I am coming from in today's monologue. Because every time, and why did I do this? So to be very honest, I I have been trying to talk about this, and the first baby step I took in this was in my discussion with Dhruva Jaishankar. And I remember reaching out to Dhruva and inviting him on the podcast. And when I did invite him in my initial email, there were a few points, out of which one of the points that I had written to, and I want to quote the line. I had written to Dhruva, a lot of times I hear commentators globally talking about a rules slash values based liberal world order. Uh, so I want to focus on that. Do we actually live in a rules or value based global liberal order, where what do we mean by a rules or a value based values based global liberal order? It by and large means that there is a set of rules. Those set of rules are enshrined in some sort of a document or a framework. Now that framework could stem from the United Nations, or Geneva Conventions, or many other things, or many meets that happens all around the world. I'm not stating one particular document. It could be a series of documents. And those documents are inspired from people who are in some sort of a top down hierarchical system, where people who are superpowers today basically have defined what this rules based value order is. So the first step we should do is that, is there something like this in real? Like, is there a global order that believes in some things in totality? I think there exists. There is some loose, vague, global, liberal, value based order. But the point is often that just because, yes, we conceptualize something like this, it means it's actually very deeply functional, and it is deeply embedded into the psyche of the countries who are the perpetrators of this idea, and the people who actually are part of the citizenry of these countries. Now, I don't need to tell you who these countries are. I mean, the liberal global value based idea is very much a Western global idea, with the West, superimposing a certain set of values on on the rest of the world through different ways, whether it's through trade policy, whether it's through national security policy, and sometimes in military interventions and stuff like that. Now, the true test of this global value based order should be on whether it is universally applied and equitably distributed in its application. And that is where the entire order fails, in my view, from a moral and ethical perspective. And it would have been easy to point at America and just keep on pointing the failures of America as a nation. But I don't want to do that. I want to attack the idea itself. And I want to say that you cannot fundamentally function in a very value based system in geopolitical world. And I will use the example of India, because when we talk about India, I think India is a great example of a microcosm of the world, in that sense, where you have a nation where there are so many languages, so many people from so many religions. And if you look at the globe, the world, in that sense, India is a good microcosm of that tussle being played out on a daily basis. And in that sense, I think India has come up with the most workable solution for that, which is, earlier on it was I mean, as much as we want to um, call it the non-alignment theory, I mean, I didn't agree with it. India should be aligned in some cases, clearly, but it is what it is. But I think the Indian way overall is far better when it comes to dealing with this so-called values-based order at a macro level. And let me explain why. Because the value-based order is clearly top down. The value-based order clearly does not respect sovereignty and territorial integrity of many nations, considering the record of the West in its interventions and through military and many other ways. And now with China also joining in the fray. So it clearly isn't. So in such a scenario, I think the Indian way is far better, where the Indian way, and whether I would say Modi's foreign policy It's just an upgrade of non-alignment. This is my personal view. It could be totally wrong. I still don't believe India is aligned. I think Indian foreign policy is very non-aligned even today. People can say what they want to say. At least sitting from here, reading articles, op-eds, reading policy documents of the government of India, and trying to understand what the government is trying to do, I genuinely don't see much of a deviation in terms of, at the core principle. I think India is non-aligned. Non-aligned is in India is non-committal. They are aligned to certain ideas that benefit them. They are non-committal to certain ideas that may benefit them, and they are clearly hostile to ideas that harm them. So, at its core, foreign policy, whether people like it or not, is transactional. It's nothing but transactionalism. And I think the Indian way is the only way you can have actually a sustainable system. You cannot have it any other way. So you might say that the liberal value based order believes in neoconservative norms like globalism and free trade. Yes, till it doesn't harm them. With uh, again, a classic example of that would be how American farmers also enjoy subsidies. It's not like they don't, they do. So what happened to free trade there? The Americans would always complain about Indian farmers and their subsidies, but it's not like Americans stopped giving subsidies to their farmers. I'm just using this as an example. You have German governments, Canadian governments, British governments preaching India on what should happen in a democracy, while the Canadian government just crushed the truckers protest, and they crushed it so brutally and so harshly. As of now, the Canadian government is in the process of passing a bill C11, if I remember the name of the bill correctly, and it's going to do some terrible things to YouTubers in Canada, where Canadian YouTubers will suffer because the government basically essentially wants to take the decision making powers of what is Canadian and what is essential for Canadian viewers. So if your content, the government decides you're a Canadian YouTuber and your content is not good enough for Canadians, they will tell YouTube, and YouTube has to suppress your views. Now you could come back and tell me, well, India does it all the time with Twitter handles. India tells social media companies to basically control Twitter handles in India. Yeah, I'm not saying no. And I use the Canadian example exactly to showcase the Indian example. And exactly, I want to come to this point that every nation does this, which is why foreign policy at its core can never, ever be a really value based order. It pretends all the time to be a value based system, and it behaves all the time on a pure horses for courses transactional way. I repeat, it pretends to be value based. And when I say it pretends to be value based, I include India in this. I'm not trying to make it out as if India is some, modicum of honesty and morality and the rest of the world is out to get us. No, everybody does this. The only difference between some and the rest is that some preach a lot, some don't. The Russians like to preach a lot when it comes to foreign policy. Somebody might say they don't know. Actually, they do too. The Chinese do too. The Americans are past masters at that. They preach all the time. Like, one book I highly recommend on how Russian, Chinese, and American propaganda is done is Vikram Sood's book on narratives. Vikram Sood is a former RAW chief, and you should read that book, and you will understand how morality is used as a shield to browbeat and basically push interests of specific countries in specific nations. They don't come at it from a moral and ethical perspective. They come at it from a very transactional perspective. Now, those perspectives sometimes are pushed by different lobbies in those countries. Sometimes it might be, genuinely a leader who's just obsessed with that idea. Sometimes it is just capitalists who want to do trade in those countries, and they are using politicians of their country to bully someone. I am leaving the moral judgments in this, like, is it right or wrong for the latter part. But what I'm trying to say is that you can break it down no matter how. At the end of the day, at its core, it is nothing but transactionalism. India does it too. America does it too. Pakistan does it too. Everybody does it. Now we run into the problem. Having said that, does that mean all countries are equally culpable? Now, that is where I would say no. In spite of the transactionalism, there are some core values that a nation stands for that makes it superior to other nations. Those nations, now I'm judging those nations, but not by their core values in foreign policy, because I think foreign policy, everybody is selfish. But the only differentiating factor we can we can use in scenarios like this is how you treat your own citizens in your own country. And there, I believe, there could be a loose alliance of democracies. And yes, democracies in that sense, they can differentiate themselves from the other nations. And I say this with no shame. I believe a democratic setup to be far better, far more superior, far more moral than, let's say, a setup that you have in Russia or China or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, for that matter. They are not a better system than what we have, let's say, in Israel or Western Europe or North America or India, for that matter, or Australia, New Zealand. I think these nations, their moral superiority does not stem from their foreign policy. What these nations do is their moral superiority stems from their internal beliefs about how they want to govern their own country. And it is that internal belief that gives them that sense of moral superiority, coupled with economic might, which is why Americans get to preach, Indians don't, is because Indians are not economically superior. I think in terms of moral superiority, they can say, well, we believe in the same systems America does. So that's the differentiating factor. So all in all, this is all foreign policy is all about. Foreign policy is nothing but a selfish system of nations working with each other with absolutely selfish motives. And because they cannot tell anyone and everyone that they are selfish seekers of benefits for sometimes private businesses, and oftentimes, how do I say, crazy politicians, and they couch it all in the language of morality, in the language of hypocrisy, in the language of many other things. That's all they do. It is never going to change. Geopolitics and foreign policy at its core is never going to change. It's always going to remain transactional. It will always remain, uh, does it benefit my nation? And that's all it's going to end at. Anybody, anybody, I repeat, who thinks foreign policy is designed by well-meaning people who want to go out there, um, and mm, and benefit people, well, you're lying to yourself. The only place where morality and good intentions function on a very serious level are when you are dealing with political issues internally. So never mix your internal superiority to your external foreign policy. And I say this with no shame. I don't believe that the Indian foreign policy is anything to die or take home either. Like, I don't see what is so special about the Indian foreign policy outside of I think India is far less hypocritical about its selfish interests than the Americans or Western Europeans. That's the only difference. The Indians just don't pretend, but then the Indians don't have to pretend is because Indians are poorer in compared to those countries. And when you're poorer, you can always say, well, we are poor and we are doing it. But when you're rich and you're doing this, you have to couch it in some, psychobabble talk and some moral talk and just justify. That's about it. So I'm going to leave it at that. I really don't see any moral and ethical system that governs foreign policy at its core. Now, if somebody is going to come at me and say, no, but the Falana chapter in UN says this, the Geneva Convention says this, we have this document that says that. Fair enough. There are some loose values that the world is trying to govern itself with, but that existed even before that. There were individual treaties before that. Now we have a much more robust system where more and more countries are signing on to it. But even after signing on to it, how many are living up to it? Like if I was to sit down and test it, how many are actually living up to that standard? Well, certainly the ones who made the UN and the ones who dominate the vote share in UN, they don't seem to. Clearly, the three major players in the world, which is America, Russia, and China, Europe is not really a major player in my view. They clearly don't follow any ethical or moral code. Now, the Russians don't, the Chinese don't, the Americans don't. So I don't know what else is left to talk about. So I'll end it there. Now I'll look at the questions if there are any. I'll answer them. Today's monologue was just going to be a short one. I was not really going to spend a lot of time, but I felt I wanted to talk about it. Just leave my thoughts out there and basically tell people that anybody who comes to you and says, oh no, it is a very moral system and very ethical system, वो किसी ने अपने आप को खुश करने के लिए बोल दिया होगा एक टाइम पे. बाकी सब स्वार्थी हैं और अपना उल्लू सीधा कर रहे हैं. तुम भी अपना उल्लू सीधा करो अपने देश का. ऑल राइट. ग्लोबल पैंडेमिक ट्रीटी. थैंक यू वेरी मच भाई मुझे पैसे देने के लिए. आई डोंट हैव टू आंसर योर स्टूपिड सुपर चैट बट थैंक यू वेरी मच. Okay, Pranab Singh, do you see the West going through second renaissance from democracy to a new system which did not exist right now, given the current deep divide? Also, do you see India setting new rules for the global order by 2035? So I'll answer your first question first. I don't see any second renaissance from democracy to a new system, at least in the next 2-3 decades. Now, one can never say never. So, yeah, as of now, I don't see any real change. I just think the divisions that are being discussed in Western society as of now is because, I mean, in my view, I think old religions have fallen and politics has taken over too much mental space these days of an average person. So because of that, people just think they're and coupled with that is the reality that you have social media where you are forced to opinionate on things that you should not be having an opinion on. To be very honest, what social media has done is that it has made us into opinion making machines. I mean, just think about it. Before 2008-9, when Twitter, Facebook, and a lot of these things were not really popular in our life, how many opinions did we have? We didn't have many opinions. But from the, uh, you know, from the day we have become digitized and digitized on a very high level, I think we just opine too much. Just think about it. Like, let's say you don't tweet or you don't comment on YouTube for 5 days, or do this study. I will not leave a comment on Twitter for 15 days nonstop. And then I will leave a comment on Twitter for 15 days nonstop. And check your happiness levels in both situations. When do you when would you have more mental peace? Now, I'm not saying you should be ignorant and any of that sort. You should be a well informed citizen, but you simply cannot have so many opinions. And the divisions I see in America sometimes, like when I had gone there, what I saw was people looking for meaning. And when you try to find meaning through politics, I mean, that's a very unhealthy equilibrium. I would not recommend people to find meaning through politics. It's the worst. Now, the next half was, do I see India setting rules for the global order by 2035? I don't. I really don't. By 2035 is the next 12 years. In the next 12 years, I'm assuming our economy will be like, अभी 3 trillion है. कितना है हमारा size? Approximately उतना है ना? Correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat. Will we be at 10 trillion? मुझे नहीं लगता है. 10 तक तो नहीं पहुंचेंगे हम लोग. 5, 6, मे बी 7. उस केस में will we have a larger say? Yes. But will we be shaping foreign policy? No. Because China will be there, और भी हैं देश. I we will be way more secure, but I don't think so we'll be setting the rules. I don't think so. मतलब ये मेरा व्यू है. We might have some say in some areas where maybe we just carry by. It could be like, for example, I always use cricket as an example, is because we share such a disproportionately large size of the cricket revenue share that we just bully everyone there. It's purely market driven. Like, if tomorrow you have a country, let's say China becomes a huge cricket market and they surpass our market, I can guarantee you nobody's going to suck up to India, everybody's going to suck up to China. I'm just giving a hypothetical. So that is very, very market driven. So you could have certain areas like that where you will have policy being driven through just the sheer size of the Indian market. But beyond that, I don't. I don't know. I don't think so. It's going to be like a disproportionate pressure on someone. I really don't think so. Anyways, chalo. Let's look at other comments. Mm. Speak about Bengal violence. I mean, there are enough people who have spoken on it. What can I add to it? I condemn the violence. Mm. IPL देखने वाले थे. Like, I tried honestly. मैंने थोड़ा सा देखा, मेरे से नहीं हुआ देखने को. I can't watch IPL. I don't enjoy T20 cricket. I mean, I'll watch it a little bit here and there because, I mean, the podcast requires it, so it's just part of um the research material. But beyond that, can't watch IPL. Mm. Are European universities worth the fees they demand? I'm not someone who follows that, so you should ask someone who actually is from the educational system. They can give a better answer. And don't go for answers of people in the live stream because they also don't know. How do you see close-lit alliances like the Five Eyes? All five members largely follow the US, even breaking previous pacts. AUKUS is it is only because they're culturally similar. I mean, there are some superficial cultural similarities, but honestly, it is all dominated by American hegemony because the Americans are a big major player. They are hegemonically dominating them, and as long as these governments, in my view, they must be doing the cost benefit analysis, right? They see themselves to be far more benefiting with these kinds of alignments than without them. So I think that is the reason they tend to go on that side. Anything on quality improvement for exporting more goods other than we already export? I did not even understand this question. How much of a threat is Garcetti? You're talking about the guy who's coming to India, Eric Garcetti. वो क्या threat है? You really think an ambassador of America coming to India is a threat? Like you guys dilute the words just left, right, and center. Like, the words have no meaning anymore. मतलब imagine a ambassador coming to a country is now a threat. मतलब इतनी हम लोगों का देश इतना कमजोर निकम्मा देश है हमारा कि एक एम्बेसडर आके हमारे देश का सत्यानाश करके चले जाएगा और हम बैठ के ऐसे देखते रहेंगे उसको. कमाल है. And Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, a symptom of this lack of meaning in Americans. There's some genuinely good thinkers there, like Pinker, but a lot of word salad has come through. Well, old religions have fallen. When old religions fall, sometimes you have that vacuum left, and this is just a stopgap arrangement until some stable idea formulates itself. I think that is it's a phase they're going through. I think people make a little too much of it. I think even when it comes to a lot of the so-called wokeness in America, like is it there? Yes, but a lot of it is just performative wokeness. Like America, when it comes to their interests, will dump the wokeness like this. It's like that. Why do social influencers and economists never link overpopulation with poverty? I don't know. You have to go and ask them. I don't know who are these people. Do you see US slipping rapidly under Biden, or it was inevitable anyway? I actually don't see US slipping under Biden all that much. I think it's just it's stagnating, not slipping. I now see whataboutery commentators getting more views and importance than actual thinkers. Do you also see this trend, and what is it? That's a very common thing. You should not be really bothered about something like this because, as I have said, the model of social media is built as such that highly provocative statements and statements that generate a lot of emotion just basically tend to get more attention, and that's been the nature of social media. That's the design of social media to. So I mean, what can you do? People who will come and try to say something sensible and calm are never going to be that famous. But always remember, policymakers don't pay attention to social media beyond a point. Policymakers are busy making policy. You have consulting agencies, and in fact, people don't realize who really influences policy in India. People genuinely don't know. They think these NGOs and all of these people, I mean, you don't know who makes policies in India. And that says a lot about most people, that they don't even know from where most policy recommendations in India are done. In fact, the one place that people should be worried about is that Indian policy making is disproportionately affected by the big four or the big five. And I don't need to say anything else. If you don't know who the big four or the big five are in the world of policy making, then you don't know anything basically. And all this faffing that you guys do most of the times on social media is useless, because anybody who has worked with policymakers knows that. Anybody who has worked on policymakers knows that how reports are made, consultants are hired, those consultants then give it to someone, and then that someone just puts it aage. That's all. But most of the work is done by the big four, big five firms when it comes to policy making in India, and most of it globally. They pretty much make the policies all of the time. So most of you, if you don't know it, and you can pretend to know that, but you actually did not know that because you've never worked on that. So you might think that some NGO, tucha NGO in the corner might be, they actually, they have no influence. They have to go to these people, and somehow can these people influence, especially economic policy, social policy. Maybe some of these NGOs might have teeny weeny influence here and there, but that is really not that much. But yeah, your policies are not decided by NGOs in India. 100%. I know this for a fact. I have seen it with my own eyes. So yeah, people can pretend. Mm, what about Muslim area as a justification for riots and crime taking us to in the future? There is no justification. There is no such thing as a Muslim area. There is, India is a sovereign nation, and the people should be free to go around anywhere and everywhere. So if there is a procession going through area A and somebody says this is a Muslim area, why are you going there? Well, what the hell? If it is part of your journey to go through somewhere, then you're gonna go. But that equally applies that there is no such thing as a Hindu area either. So if a Muslim procession is going, that should also be allowed to go, or a Sikh procession, or a Jain procession, or a Buddhist procession, or just a secular procession for that matter. So I mean, I don't know. How can we fight anti-India ideas outside India? There's too much misinformation about India. You can. Why do you? If you are, I'm assuming you're living in India. Why do you care so much about what happens outside India? What happens outside India is, let the Indians living there handle it, and let the Indian foreign office handle it. What can you do? You can read portals and share it. That's the best you can do. Mm. All right. It seems I've covered pretty much all your questions. I'm just. I'm just trying to see if I have missed any. No, it seems I've covered everything. Mm, yeah, I think yeah, I've pretty much. So somebody is what? क्या लिखा है ये? Hmm. What's the best thing about living in Mumbai? Hmm. I think overall the city gives you space. People don't bother you. They don't disturb you. I think when it comes to business dealings, most professional. I think the most professional working space in India. Um, it has a beautiful blend of culture from the ancient to the modern, and it's a beautifully blended thing. Like Mumbai is the only city that will party hard and then celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi like there is no tomorrow. That's what I love about Mumbai. I'm not saying other parts of India don't do it. I'm sure other parts of India also do it. But there's something uniquely wonderful about Mumbai as a city. And I mean, I would not live anywhere else other than Mumbai in India. Um, the best. I think the public transport has become poor now. So with the metro coming up, I think the public transport will come back up. Another beautiful thing is that even today in Mumbai, most of the people use the buses and trains. The income gap, you can see rich people even today using trains because of just the traffic is pathetic. That's why. So yeah, overall, I don't think so. It has better food than Delhi for that matter. Honestly, I don't think Mumbai food is all that great. But what makes Mumbai amazing is the people. I think the people are just wonderful and very professional. And this is not a snide at anyone else, but honestly, you feel the difference when you work with other parts of India and you work in Mumbai. You clearly see the difference in the level of professionalism. Just especially if you're a small to medium scale enterprise trying to make something up in your life. Oh my goodness, you have no idea how horrible other parts of India are. Seriously. Did the NCP shit its pants about Savarkar? No, this was expected. Savarkar is a very prominent political figure in Maharashtra. Why would any political party do that? Rahul Gandhi is just dumb. That's all I can say. I already have made Why Do Reservations Work podcast. You should go and check it. Mm. It hurts when you talk about RCB in such a way. Listen, it's just a running joke that I do. I mean, I sincerely hope that they lose every game. It's just a stupid team. Oh man, you guys, RCB fans, and you guys can troll me, right? I mean, Mumbai got destroyed by RCB, so so make most while it lasts. But always remember, even if RCB wins this year's IPL, which it won't, always remember Mumbai has five plus one, the WPL one, six. We have six. You have Anda. Always remember that. Never, never celebrate too much if you're a RCB fan. That's all I can say. My goodness, but Mumbai was so horrible. Outside of that one batsman who scored 80 odd runs, मतलब हम लोग कर क्या रहे थे? It was I was messaging Adit privately and telling him on WhatsApp that ये तो बर्बाद कर दिया इन्होंने हमको. And he was like, हाँ, मैंने तुझे बोला था, बहुत घटिया हो गई है तेरी टीम. And I was like, yeah, damn it. But Mumbai won 5 times. How to troll? Then don't troll. Please don't troll. Just accept that RCB sucks. All you guys have to do is just accept the reality that the team you support sucks. And you guys had arguably the best batsman of India in your team as a captain. You guys had AB de Villiers, probably the best T20 player, probably the best T20 player. And you guys still suck. What do you want me to do? I didn't make the rules. My negative comment towards the team is very helpful for their direct success. So RCB might. Boss, I have been shitting on RCB since the first year of the IPL. So you cannot pin this on me. I'm sorry. You cannot pin this on me. RCB sucks. With Raga calling intervention, at what point the West may put sanctions on India and Indians? Do you see a downward perception of Indians abroad? You'll be pleasantly surprised how little um, serious people take Rahul Gandhi. They don't give a shit about Rahul Gandhi. They use the statements of Rahul Gandhi as a stick to negotiate with India because they think it's a useful stick to beat India with when they are negotiating with us. But beyond that, no. Seriously, ask foreign policy wonks privately off the record what they think of Rahul Gandhi, and you'll get the choicest words. When will Yogi Adityanath become the PM? I cannot predict that, boss. Very hard. I don't have a crystal ball. Chris Gale is the best T20 player. I don't agree with you. I think AB de Villiers is the best T20 player. Should RCB look for a numerologist and see changing name will bring you are one of the most desperate RCB fans that I have come across. मतलब आप लोगों की हालत ये है कि यार नाम ही चेंज कर लो, 15 साल से हार रहे हैं तो सोचो पंजाब है, ठीक है, पंजाब वाली टीम है, फिर आपकी और भी टीमें हैं, वो भी तो पिटे हुए हैं, वो तो ऐसे नहीं रोते. See, this is why I mock RCB because RCB fans are so hilarious. Like RCB has the weirdest fans. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I love trolling RCB fans. It's just so much fun. Yeah, Punjab and Delhi have never won. I agree. Uh, but it's so much fun to rub it into RCB, not to Punjab and Delhi. Because the fans of RCB just react so weirdly. Like they can't take it. They just can't take it. Oh my god, RCB fans. Limbu will help. कुछ नहीं उनको मदद करेगा. वो फिर सेमीफाइनल तक आके हार जाएंगे. Thank you, Kartikeya. If you have a question, you can ask that. Will India backstab Russia if USA stands with India against China and Pakistan? No. We're too hedged in the defense procurement. When will Bharat be a Hindu Rashtra? Will it be under Amit Shah? Bharat already is a Hindu Rashtra. What I think you want is a Hindu Rajya, a Hindu state. That will never happen. Not under Amit Shah, not under Yogi, not under Modi. पंजाब दिल्ली बैंगलोर ने ट्रॉफी कभी नहीं जीती. कॉमन कनेक्शन इज कोहली. यस, आई एग्री. कोहली and I'm actually a fan of Virat Kohli. I like Virat Kohli, but I don't know, I don't like RCB. Hmm. As African countries are waking up, example Kenya, do you see them coming up with something like their EU? That is a good possibility, but you can bet your bottom dollar that the West, China, especially these two players, will try their level best that the African nations do not unite, and they will play all the dirty politics possible when it comes to messing up their ability to unite. Serious question. Kaha gaya bhai? Does RCB get press mainly because of Kohli? Because Punjab and Delhi also had good teams, but not as much PR. Could be. I think not just Kohli. RCB also had AB de Villiers, boss. Aap bhul rahe ho. That's why. And I think it also depends on the PR campaign of the teams. I think that is also. But Kohli, definitely. I accept Kohli is a huge factor, boss. He is. He is Kohli. So you're going to have that, right? But I think their PR is also very well done. Who's that stand-up guy, Danish or something? He also does that thing with the RCB team and stuff like that. I think they have good thing. Do you think Mamta Didi's TMC will lose seats after the Bengal violence? There is no election right now, so these things tend to die out. Do you think Indians lose their minds collectively when about Russia? Nah, I don't think so. I think Indians are not as attached to the idea of Russia either. What's your view on changing demography in Bengal, future of Hindus in Bengal? Well, as long as it's a part of India, I genuinely feel secure. But demography is destiny. We cannot deny that. Mm, if Kohli were in Delhi, Delhi को इतना ही ट्रोल होता. Yes, that's true. And I think कोहली को दिल्ली में डालना चाहिए था. He is a Delhi boy. He should have led the Delhi team. But ठीक है. I don't know why he ended up in RCB. Do you buy the decline of the West theory or USA is tactically retreated? I think tactical retreat is more of a thing. West has not declined, boss. Will African nations work if they de-Abrahamize and accept their older nature worship again? I don't know. That's too much. Like, work in what sense? How? Like, tomorrow they suddenly start. See, this single point agenda question I have never understood. Like, tomorrow they change their core nature, doesn't mean their economics will change, right? So, eh, life is not a single point variable. US uses third party countries to engage with its enemies. Can India do the same? India, yes, should and will do the same. Hmm. Malia took SBI loans and kept Kohli. I don't know. You seem to be a dedicated RCB fan. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at your halat, but it's just to upload on Google Podcast. It is there. It's on Audible too. Cārvāka podcast. नहीं किसी ने अपना नाम बेंजामिन नेतन्याहू ही कर दिया है. वाह शाबाश. Can India also ban restrict use of English in official language? Just that it can, it should not. My H1B lottery selected this year. Should I try for a job in America or it's a bad time? I'm 45 years old and I have 21 years. I mean, if you think you can get a job over there and you can make more money, why not? You should move. I mean, how can I answer that question? I don't know your life and your situation, but if you think you can make more money outside India, have a better quality of life, then yes, why not? You should. You should think of moving outside India. I mean, I can't answer that for you, right? I don't know you. Do you think protests in Israel have a hand of USA? Must. I've not studied it. I don't know the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connection, so I can't answer that. What are your thoughts and predictions about future of Indian foreign policy, given that we will soon become the third largest economy? Our foreign policy is going to remain like this. It's just our nature as a people. Our foreign policy establishment is not going to change significantly. We're just going to remain like this. It will be a horses or courses transactionalism, Indian interest first, and baki non-interventionists in most areas. That I think has been pretty much our line. Modi's friends Macron and Benjamin Netanyahu seems getting out of power soon. Boris out, Bolsonaro out. Do you see a pattern here? I mean, why Sweden had a right wing government? Um, वो कौन सी है? वो सरीन वो हार गई. राइट विंग गवर्नमेंट उसके देश में आ गई है. तो कुछ जाते हैं तो कुछ आते हैं. इटली में राइट विंग गवर्नमेंट आ गई है. आई जस्ट गिव यू 3 names to counter your 3 names. ओके, क्वेश्चंस तो सारे हो गए. और कुछ देख रहा हूँ, कुछ रह गया नहीं. Seems I've answered everything. चलो जी, हो गया. पते गए. All right, guys, we can wrap it up. Almost, it's almost an hour, and as always, thank you very much for your questions. I hope I was able to answer all of them. If I did not, well, I apologize. I can only, do what I can. Beyond the point, I don't like to make definitive statements like a lot of social media experts do. I can only talk about things that I feel reasonably confident about. But like I said, please support the Charvak podcast. And oh yeah, I forgot completely. ये तो मैं बोलना भूल ही गया. So there is a new merch is out. So you can go on kushalmehra.com/shop, and if you want, you can buy the new merch. So this is the new merch, the Pulse Agai Pulse t-shirt. So if you want, you guys can go and buy it. The link's there. Go to kushalmehra.com/shop. As you see it on the screen right now, there are two colors, black and white, or other merchandise is also there. So if you guys can go and buy it, do. Other than that, like I always said, thank you very much for your questions and your membership, and please keep supporting this podcast by joining the membership program, because that helps me stay away from any kind of people who want to sign agreements with you and then dictate your content. So yeah, please keep on supporting this, whether by becoming a member on YouTube or on Patreon or on Fanmo, or by buying the merchandise or sending your donations directly to UPI. So like I said, keep supporting me. I thank you all, and keep looking at new content as always, and keep your comments in the comment section. एंड यार, लाइक करो वीडियो और सब्सक्राइब करो चैनल को. अभी भी आधे लोग ऑलमोस्ट हैं जो देखते हैं वीडियोस, जो सब्सक्राइब नहीं करते. भाई सब्सक्राइब करो, क्या कर रहे हो? करो. आई विल सी यू गाइज नेक्स्ट टाइम. अंटिल देन, टाटा बाय बाय.